So,
Okay.
guys, this is the maiden voyage of the captain's cabin, an idea that's been very long in the pipeline. So we have Rory MC, Joey P, and Mr. Harry Kimber. So, gentlemen, um, how does it feel to be on the maiden voyage of the captain's cabin? By the way,
It's an honour. First episode, it's the launch, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very
first
much,
ever.
Captain.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah,
Feels
it's
good to
course.
be
good.
on here.
I mean, it's generally the idea of what I want to do is, as people will see on the visuals when I do release it, is break some fourth walls. Talk about some real stuff. But more importantly, learn about people's journeys and what they've done in the wrestling world and others as well. We can expand, which is why I think having you three as the maiden voyage is perfect because two of you guys do the commentary. Been involved with VWA for quite a long time. And Harry, of course, you are head of visuals, YouTube guy, the
Yeah.
cameraman. So what I thought we could do to start with is if just individually, just maybe in the order I've got you on the screen, start with you, Joe. Sort of your journey to we'll go from wrestling fan to sort of what the first things you sort of saw were, how you got into the wrestling world especially, and what you liked about it then and what you like about it now. So, if you would indulge us, Joe.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So I first started watching wrestling, and I think it was around about October 2010. My dad put it on as just a random thing that you put on nowadays to watch sports. It just sort of came on, and he was like, "Oh, your uncle used to watch this. He used to like it. He used to, really be fond of it." So I was like, "Oh, okay, fair enough. I'll give it a watch." And I remember the match exactly. It was Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston, the US title.
Mm.
And it was just around about the time that the Nexus got involved. And I think it was Wade Barrett and John Cena, I think at Hell in a Cell.
Oh, of course it was. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. And then I got into it from then, and then I was like, right, I really quite like this. All the stuff on the microphones, the action as well. Like the thing as well, before I was sort of worried it was going to be a bit like boxing
Right.
because personally, for me, I'm not a fan of boxing. But I absolutely loved it from day one. I got heavily involved with it. I watched it every single week. It was just a perfect thing, and yeah, I loved it
Cool.
from then. Really,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
2010 was a good time. I mean, it's. I mean, I've watched WWE since what 1993.
Mm.
I saw the first episode of Raw. I kind of got into it through my cousins. They showed me all the. I mean, I was way too young to be watching it. But to see it evolve from sort of that, the Nexus was kind of your. I don't know if you guys agree, the modern day NWO of the wrestling world, especially when they came in and destroyed the Raw episode. I thought
Yep,
that was great.
yep, I remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant. Cool, cool. So I mean, what was it? So you obviously carried on watching. Um, how did you get into the wrestling world? Like, so to sort of explain to the people that are listening what you do now, and how you got there.
So I wanted to sort of get involved in it for quite a while, and obviously the only thing I sort of saw was WWE at the time. So I was like, well, that's in America, that's miles away. So I thought, how on earth am I supposed to get myself involved in sort of that? And then I met my good friend, Mr. Rory Mack. And basically, he's basically said that he's a wrestling fan too. So we watched WWE for a while, and then I believe it was a couple of years down the line, and they said, "Oh, we're going to this independent wrestling show. Do you want to come along?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, 100%. Let's do it." And ever since then, I just fell in love with the whole of the business and wanted to do more. And then Harry was like, "Oh, there's this show that me and Rory, sort of do volunteering for. We wondered if you wanted to come along and experience it." And yeah, that's how I got to EWA. I came along for that one day. I got bullied by the hit set and the Tycoon. And then yeah, the rest as they say is history. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on that show.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, nice, nice. What about yourself, Rory, who is next on my screen?
Well, it goes quite a long way back because me and Harry and Joe have been watching wrestling the longest. I mostly got into wrestling thanks to my cousins, really. Like like with you, Carl. Like
Mm.
I became a fan since I'd say around 2002. You know, the noughties. It was quite a good time to get into it, but I kind of missed out the Attitude Era. But
Right.
obviously, I was a kid back then, so I knew. You know, that's when things used to. I remember things quite violent when WWE was in the ruthless aggression era. I remember watching good moments of Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and you know, looking back at it, it just like it's nostalgia for me because that's when I
Yeah.
got into it. And I remembered my very first WWE game was SmackDown Shut Your Mouth,
Oh,
and
nice. Number
back on the
4.
PS2.
Yeah.
Such a classic game. I remember that's when it really got me into wrestling in total. Obviously back then I was just a WWE fan, but I watched it for a few years, but then suddenly I lost interest in it after WrestleMania 20,
Oh, okay.
and then
2004. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of missed out a bit. But it took me a while to get back into it. In 2007, I remember my dad was watching an episode of Monday Night Raw, and I remember starting out. I thought, oh, hey, there's Triple H and all that, and you know, it's good to see there was still quite a few familiar faces I saw there, and I thought, you know, what, I'm going to start watching it again.
Sure. Yeah.
And but when I started watching other wrestling shows, I think I'll definitely say it obviously started off with Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling, aka TNA, well, now currently known as Impact
Impact.
Wrestling. Yeah, so that's another. I remember, obviously, that's a show I've seen, started watching again. And then, thanks to What Culture, decided to bring out their show called What Culture Pro Wrestling
Mm.
before it became Defiant. That opened up another door to watching what goes on in the wrestling world. That was back. But then, um, getting involved with EWA was another thing that opened up myself to become more of a wrestling fan, from WWE fan to wrestling fan.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the definition of a wrestling fan, I think, is it's changed a lot over the years. The definition of a wrestling fan. I suppose
Mm.
nowadays you'd probably put them on. The war at the moment that is kind of going on is between WWE fans and AEW fans. And interestingly, when I was actually speaking to Bullet very recently, we both kind of agreed that a wrestling fan should be somebody who it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or what camp you're in. It's watching it for the entertainment aspect of it. I mean, I think there's some great things that WWE has done in the past. I think they're floundering a bit now, and AEW has come along as the competition they needed. But it doesn't have to be competition. It can
Mm.
just be something that people can sit down and watch and enjoy. So, Harry, onto you, my good friend. It's your journey through the wrestling world, from wrestling fan to the head of filming and production wise of EWA.
Yeah, so I got into professional wrestling back in January of 2009, and it was my good friend there, Rory Mack, who got me into wrestling. I remember even before I started watching the WWE programming like Raw and SmackDown, I remember this specifically. One day I had Rory round after school, and he brought with him SmackDown versus Raw 2009
Oh,
on the
excellent.
PS2, and that's
So
what
that
got me into like wanting to know and learn more about professional wrestling. And I still remember our first ever tag team match we played on that game. We were playing as DX, and we faced I think we faced Legacy. I think, yeah, I can't remember, but yeah,
Brilliant.
first ever time playing that game. I was Triple H, and no, sorry, I was Shawn Michaels and Roy was Triple H. We definitely played as DX. And then since like being introduced to the game, I then of course, like I said, wanted to see what WWE was all about. So then I started watching the highlights from their show on their YouTube channel, or like watching it through Rory and stuff, because I didn't have Sky TV back then. And then what really got me more invested in wrestling was the whole art of the storyline. Like, there's more to wrestling than just seeing one guy versus another guy, like a match. There's more to it. Like, there's the whole storyline behind it. There's the whole creative process behind putting a match together. And at the time, my first wrestler that I got that I got behind was Kane, funnily enough.
Oh, excellent.
And then after that, I transitioned on to becoming more of a fan of John Cena because I really loved what he stood for, and that being, you know, the hustle, loyalty, respect, the never giving up. I was really invested in that character and him as a person. But that aside, the first match that really got me hooked on wrestling was Jeff Hardy versus Matt Hardy, WrestleMania 25, the brother versus
Classic.
brother
Classic.
Extreme
It
Rules
was
match.
it was
As
classic.
soon as I finished watching that, I was like, oh my god. I did not realize that there was this much into wrestling, and like seeing like, you know, an actual, you know, two siblings, a brother versus brother going at it, like, you know, combining their siblinghood, like their actual family life in the wrestling ring, like, you know, bringing it forward into a storyline, like that was just opened up like a whole new view for me when it comes to wrestling. And then, you know, as the years went on, I started getting invested into other wrestlers. Like my favorite wrestler to this day, since the whole voice of the voiceless thing, is of course CM Punk. And you know, I love what CM Punk stands for. Like not just his character, but like his lifestyle outside the ring. Like he is straight edge, and I've been straight edge since May of 2019 when I decided to no longer drink alcohol, and that was a big stepping stone for me because to me, like seeing that, like I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but seeing that
Yeah.
CM Punk can do it, I was thinking, wait, you know, this isn't a part, like this is part of his wrestling character, but it's more than that. Like this is actually something that he sticks by in his personal life, and to see him incorporate it in his wrestling character, like that meant so much more to me. And seeing that he stuck to that in his actual personal life, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say it now. CM Punk is my role model, and I'm going to look up to him for the rest of eternity because he is more than just a pro wrestler to me. He's my idol. He's my hero. Is CM
Oh
Punk?
yeah, I mean I think a lot of
You
them
know?
are. I mean it's a very good thing you can get from wrestling is I think a lot of people like us. I mean, you know, you three making me feel my age of 102. How long I've watched wrestling. But no, it's something that I think that people can get out of it in terms of, you know, these guys. Hero is a word that's thrown around a lot, of course, but you know these guys are, especially for, you know, guys like us, you know, who do grow up watching wrestling, these are our first heroes that we see on the screen. You know, I think my mum used to cringe at, you know, me and my cousins, you know, wrestling each other in the front room of my auntie's house in Enfield. You know, whacking each other with pillows and jumping off the back of sofas and stuff. I mean, I'm sure they were, you know, just waiting for the next accident to happen. But that's what we did
Yeah.
as kids, because we looked up to these guys. We saw what they were. I mean, some for me were definitely, like, in terms of the ability and some of the stuff I saw, maybe not quite the role model for back then was Shawn Michaels. I loved that guy. I mean, there was just nothing he couldn't do in the ring. I very much got behind people like Jeff Hardy, like yourself, Harry. Hogan, of course, because, you know, watching it from sort of mid-90s onwards, he was still very much what people would call, you know, air quotes, the cornerstone of wrestling, even though, you know, later on he moved over to the WCW. But he was still the fabric of Americana. There was no one in the world who didn't know his name. So you do look up to these guys, and I think it's admirable, Harry, mate. I mean, there's a lot of things, especially in the last year, I've cut out doing. I do still drink now and then, but it's one or two if I go out with my friends. You know, I stopped. I hope there's no people under 18 watching this, but I stopped smoking weed a long, long time ago, because it was something, like you said, it was living that clean life. Yeah, you want to experiment, you want to do things, but just like you said about CM Punk, it was kind of, you know, these guys are doing this. They're great people, and these are my role models, so I'm going to follow in their suit. And sometimes it comes out great.
Yeah, exactly. And then how I got into becoming the head of videography, I'll say the
Videography,
filming
yeah.
role at EWA was it was a case of it's not what you know, it's who you know. And somebody who was involved with EWA at the time told me that they were about to put on their homecoming show in January of 2017,
17.
and they invited me along. And I said at the time that I did photography because before transitioning over to video, I thought I'd give photography a try. So at EWA's Homecoming 2017 event, I did all the photography for that show, and I tell you what, it was an experience like no other. Like, it was the first opportunity that I got where, like, I was a part of wrestling, but I wasn't a fan watching at home. I was actually involved in the production of a show. I was a crew member for the show, and seeing all the BTS, or say the behind the scenes of what goes in to put in a professional wrestling production together blew my mind. And not only that, but all the crew and all the wrestlers that I worked with and met backstage and got to speak to them all and get to know them on a personal level, I couldn't have felt more welcomed than I would have imagined. Like, everybody was so laid back, incredibly friendly, and they just wanted to ensure that I had the best experience being a part of their crew. And then fast forward a couple of months, I then transitioned over to video, and as Joe said, the rest is history. I absolutely love my role for Entertainment Wrestling Association, and it's an honour to be the head of videography, or say all the filming, because, you know, when you see the final result, like, for me, it's just, you know, setting up a camera, pressing record on the night, and making sure both Rory and Joe and John's commentary audio is all set up. Like, seeing it when it's finished, like, when I've edited the final piece together, like, I can't help but think that I've done that. And, you know, I want to make sure that I have produced the best physical, or say virtual, visuals and the best products that best represents EWA. And I think I have done that so far, and I will continue to do that.
Yeah,
And I always want to put my best foot forward for this show and for this company.
Oh yeah, and you always do, Harry. I mean, it's very important aspect about, like you say, the behind the scenes of, you know, and one of the reasons I decided to do a podcast like this is that, you know, the crowd does see what, you know, we'll refer to as a finished product, whether it's video online or the crowd that come on the day. There is so much. I mean, it takes a small village, especially for us, to run what is essentially a 2-hour show. And I think everybody who does work together, and it's, you know, I personally, you know, as the promoter, I can't be more thankful to everybody who's a part of it, because the work that goes into it is, and it's great, you know, when you guys came on board and got involved, it was great to see that there were so many people that did actually appreciate that it's not just a one-day thing, it's not just a 2-hour thing. It's, you know, it takes us best part of 3 days to put on a show these days. And like you say, there's so many people doing so many things that it's very relieving for me to know that I can talk to Birdie, you know, production on the show. He's got it all figured. You know, a gentleman named Simon helped him out on the show just gone. You know, you guys, I mean, I do apologise, I barely speak to you on show day, but it's,
That's okay.
you know, it's absolute trust in the fact that I know I can just leave certain people to it. We will get the finished product. You know, like, you know, you and I, Harry, you know, I sent you a bunch of intros, you put the matches together, you know, slink the intro on the thing, you know. So a lot of people won't know that those videos, especially with the intro and the splicing it together, has been a team effort. There's actually 2 people that have gone into doing that. And without the commentary for yourself, Joe and Rory, I think it's that aspect that there are loads of wrestling videos online. There are loads and loads. You know, to watch wrestling, it's about 3 or 4 clicks away these days, but not all of them have commentary. I mean, what do you guys think in terms of what's the differences between some of the stuff you see, you know, some that don't have shot commentary, some that do, or the production-wise of the British independent world?
I mean, there's a few differences, I think, when commentary is involved, because I think that the commentary sometimes, these are very, you know, rare occurrences, but sometimes the commentary can actually make the match. And, you know, sometimes when people don't have commentary for their matches, the wrestling may be amazing, but it just could do with that bit of just a bit extra in. And I believe that the commentary is very, very important when it comes to actually like producing a masterpiece of a wrestling match. Because I think if you think about Mankind and Undertaker, for example, at Hell in a Cell 1997 in Bad Blood,
Yeah.
you think about how Jim Ross made that made that match. By God, by God.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it can make a huge difference.
Well, yeah, I think some things that come to mind, especially about having you guys commentate on the EWA shows, is having some people in the ring. Like, I mean, what was it like, for example, for yourself, Rory, and you, Joe, to commentate on Jody Fleisch versus Eddie Dennis versus Johnny Storm?
In in a word, it was absolutely phenomenal. There was one thing that I always remember, and I will always remember to the day I die, and that was my friend Harry on the camera when Jody Fleisch did that one moonsault off the top, and he smiled. He just stood there and smiled
Yeah.
directly towards us, with
I
holding the
remember that.
camera.
Yeah.
And
I was
Oh, I
there
remember that.
mid filming. I glanced
yeah,
over to Roy and Joe, and I'm just like this.
I,
When you look back at the video,
I'd
you
Yeah.
can actually see Harry look just smiling and amazed, looking at me and Joe and John.
I've never had such raw emotion than when I'm watching Jody Fleisch. It is unbelievable. I've never seen such the talent that man has is ridiculous. For a guy, he's quality. He's absolutely quality, and I love watching him wrestle. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, Jody Fleisch. I mean, a lot of people who might listen to this will remember. Like I say, I'm again showing my age of how long I've been watching. ZZW Best of the Best 2. I mean, that match. That is one of the matches that people go to for. It's a go-to match for. It was match of the year of that year. Um, I don't think there's anybody who didn't watch that thought, oh my god, like these guys. I mean, like Eddie said in his promo at the end, there are certain people in British wrestling that have paved the way for what has happened now. We ourselves have got Doug Williams coming to EWA in January. He's a guy that was in TNA. He's been a British wrestler for a long, long time, and it's really nice to sort of hear as well that from that match people got exactly what it was we were looking for in terms of that match, and that's what I think we like to give to people. We've had Jody Fleisch versus Wild Boar, Mike Hitchum. We've done the one we just said. Dan Maloney, absolute gentleman, good friend, an amazing man, Dan Maloney. We've had so many people come through. Tyler Bate, was the first UK NXT UK champion. He wrestled with us for a good 4 years. He came through us. Chris Brooks, Obey Brooks, he's in Japan now. I mean, in terms of the talent that have come through, who's probably been your favourite that's come through, and who would you like to see come through if we can possibly do it?
I'll let you guys answer. Yeah.
I remember watching other shows and thinking, oh, I like to see him on EWA. And I think obviously I know one of them, for example, I'll have to say definitely thinking Ashley Dunn, because
Right.
the Minesweeper, because I've seen him live so many times. I've become friends with him we're friends on Facebook, friends on Instagram, and I thought this guy, we can definitely do with him on EWA.
Mm.
So,
Mm. Have you got one, Harry, that you might want to come through, if possible, come through EWA?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think just going off of other independent shows that I've not only watched but also filmed for, there is this wrestler in a London-based show called Arcadius, and he's like a heavyweight guy, and he's Yeah, he's a incredibly nice guy, like behind the scenes, but his character and his whole like the way he wrestles and stuff, I think it would be a good fit for like the more heavyweight division in EWA. Like put him up against Bullet or something. I think they would have a great match.
Mm.
Yeah. So off the top of my head, I think Arcadius. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, sort of heavyweight stuff. Like, I personally do like what I've always referred to, and I hope no wrestler takes it as a, as something else. But I've always referred to it as the flippy floppy stuff. But I really like that. I always have.
Mm.
I've always been a sort of big tag team wrestling fan as well. But really, the sort of I've really liked the acrobatics of the wrestling world, and we sort of moved in that kind of direction, especially with, like I say, using some of the boys that have gone on to greener pastures. Two of which, of course, so you've got your Sam Stoker and Lewis Howley that are, I believe, they're still the NXT UK Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, they are.
And Sammy, of course, is a previous EWA champion. Which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, couldn't be more happy for the guys that come through and make it to those. I mean, Pete Dunne, can't get much better than Pete Dunne. Absolutely brilliant how far he's gone. Scenario for you then. So, something in my head, which and it'll be the first time a lot of people have heard this. Would you guys like to see something like, if possible, Bullet versus Jody versus Sammy Stoker?
Yes.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely. Take
You've
my
got
money now.
You've got like
That's
couple of
box
different
office, Carl.
styles.
That is.
Yeah.
If we
I
can
think
get
you've
that
got
going.
three types of styles of wrestling in the ring that makes it really good as well, and also what they do and what they bring out to the ring as well, and
Yeah.
what they can do for their match.
Yeah, different styles I think is something. Again, it's I've don't watch as many wrestling shows as I used to these days. I mean, I used to travel all over the place, but I've very much wound down in the last couple of years. But yeah, I think in terms of shows I've seen, you do get variety from a lot of places. What we personally try to do is try and get a little bit of everything. We'd like to try and have a bit of what you'd call, your star power. We do like to have a lot of the acrobatics and flippy floppy stuff, as I refer to it. It has to be a tag match on there for me as well. I mean, in terms of style of wrestling, what would you three guys say is your favourite style? Tag, the acrobatics, which would you pick?
Me, I'd have to say the acrobatics and like the high flying stuff. I
Nice.
really like that. Yeah.
I would agree with Harry on that. I think the acrobatics, yeah.
For me, it's definitely have to be acrobatics, like high flyer, and heavy hitting, like strikers. I kind of like. That's why Mike Bailey is one of my favourite wrestlers out there.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot to. I mean, you were mentioning about stories earlier about how a match sort of takes, what they've got in terms of what they physically they do in the ring, but the story that's told as well. It's a real shame that you guys sort of did just miss off the cuff of the Attitude Era, because a lot of the time I think people look back at the Attitude Era with rose-tinted glasses. Sometimes it was much more about the story than it was, I think, the wrestling skill. In some, much more about the wrestling skill back then. But story-wise, I think we have to, especially with the main title, you've got to tell that story with the main title. Which I think one of my favourite matches that I always refer to a lot of people is Bullet versus Sam Stoker, the champion versus champion, battle of the hometown heroes. Now, interestingly, that idea came about from a conversation that Ben and I had in what was my old back garden on the phone. It started as asking Ben sort of, this is sort of the idea we want to sort of, push you to the main title. A few conversations later, he came up with this idea of mixing Sammy, and it sort of developed over the going weeks into, you're both from Wickham, hometown status, you both got titles, what can we do with this? And it was exactly what we wanted it to be, in terms of the crowd was hot the whole match. they didn't so much turn on Sammy, but they kind of picked Bullet. They decided kind of halfway through the match, this is our guy. What was your guys' opinion, commentating on that match especially? What would you say was your favourite parts of that match? And do you think of it the same way I do?
Yeah, it was definitely one of the best matches I've ever seen. In terms of the noise of the audience, I've never ever in the judo center ever, I've never heard it that loud. That was unbelievable, and the way that the crowd very much turned on Sam Stoker as well was very surprising to me. Like it's like you start off 50-50, and then suddenly everyone was all I could hear everywhere was just bullet, 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 bullet. And he won with an amazing powerbomb off the top rope,
Yes.
and it was just an eruption. And I felt alive. I felt really good afterwards. It's just to commentate on that match is just an honor. It really is. It really is.
I felt like that as well. Really, it was an honor to commentate on it.
I mean, it was a brilliant match. I mean, like I said, story-wise, I think it was very, very important that those boys did a very, very good job of telling the story of that match. Like, it wasn't. They were, belting, 10 shades out of each other. But it was about respect, and I think they put across very well the story that it wasn't about, they didn't dislike each other. It was about respect. It was, who is the hometown hero. Very much kind of, if you guys remember, the story between Sean and Hogan. I need to know. I need to know which of us is better. And that's what it kind of gave for me in terms of, Sammy is absolutely phenomenal. Ben has risen through the ranks so fast. Like I said, we are breaking fourth walls here, using real names. But the speed in which he got better and better and better, and the crowd just kept getting behind him. I mean, his first British title win. I'm really glad we did what we did with that, because it was kind of, nobody expected that, and that's what I wanted. It was, Brandon Thomas is going into another British title defence, he'll beat this guy too and keep the belt. I mean, that actually raises a very good question that I think a lot of listeners might want to sort of hear or tune into, is surprises, especially in the modern era, what Triple H referred to as the reality era. It's gone, hasn't it? Or what's your guys' opinion? We don't get so many surprises anymore.
I think with WWE, that sort of thing is now gone. It's very much the same product every single week.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah,
I'm starting to get a bit fed up with.
I agree.
The releases last night as well, more of them.
Yeah.
It's to me, I don't know the insides of the company. I have not stepped foot in WWE. I don't have any links to them or anything else like that. But from the outside looking in, it seems like an absolutely horrific company to work for. But then you have AEW there as well, and that gets me on the edge of my seat every single week I watch it, because there's always something. There's always something that's surprising. There's always a debut, or there's always a backstage segment that really takes my interest. And in terms of the recall, yeah, I would say that that has gone, but with AEW, they're getting better each week, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think the cool thing was, I mean, WWE turned into a kids company quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
And what I think is a shame about that is that, when I was a young lad watching wrestling, the appeal was what you were seeing on the screen, but it was also, I'm not supposed to be watching this. The pushing the bar was something that, it was part of the enjoyment. You knew that you weren't supposed to be watching it, but you were anyway. It was that rebellious thing that sort of came from, sort of your late 90s Attitude Era things as well. It was rebellious. That was the whole point. That was wrestling. That definitely has gone. AEW, like you guys say, I think it's come along at the right time. I do think they've got to be very careful. I mean, it's a personal opinion of mine. The Cody thing with the smashing Triple H's chair, and the sometimes the pokes with a stick that come from AEW, I do think they've got to be slightly careful when they say, "Oh, we don't take shots," and then quite blatantly do, because they don't want to be put into a category where they keep doing that and the people just will turn around and go, "But you do though." Because the minute you lose respect for something, I think that's what has happened to WWE. I think the minute you lose respect for it, it's very hard to get that back.
Yeah.
I mean, Rory, you mentioned earlier that you did stop watching for a few years during the 2000s. I'm not surprised, to be quite honest. I mean, I remember the lull of 2005. There's been lots of sort of down periods. I mean, the Monday Night Wars, we really thought WCW was going to win. They kind of shot themselves in the foot and crashed to the ground. But the lull of recent times of WWE has been the longest I've known of the lulls. It has been a very long time. I'm not sure they're going to recover. But, which sort of leads me on to a very interesting point of, what do you guys think about this rumoured and proposed sale of the WWE?
Right. I had quite a prediction in my head what was going on, because I won't be surprised if, I know it's going to sound stupid what I'm going to say, but is if I think Walt Disney could possibly be the main company that's going to buy the WWE off Vince McMahon.
I think,
Because
yeah, I wouldn't
I'll
say
say
that's, yeah.
to be fair, some things could work out in the way, because it'd be nice that if they upload every WWE, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, any of the network specials onto Disney Plus, would be quite good. It'd be nice to. I've got an archive, because obviously I have Disney Plus, and I can have another separate archive of things that I want to watch, like the classic days of WWE.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember watching an interview of Mike Chioda with, I can't remember his name, who was interviewed him, but he said it could go two ways. Like, for example, like what happened with Star Wars,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
how the sequel trilogy, like
Yeah.
story wise, just went a bit off the rails a bit. I find it, but then they recovered well with the Mandalorian series.
Yeah, I think,
But who are they going to let run WWE? That's the big question when they buy it.
I think money. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much now, or has become. I mean, WWE have recorded record profits in the last couple of years. A lot of liquidation going on. I think. What do you do before you do sell something? You liquidate all the assets you can. I think that's what they're doing. We've seen, as you said, Joe, we've seen a lot of releases. Last night. Through the year and last year. A couple of years before that, there was more. They have been streamlining. We'll call it streamlining. So it kind of seems like everything is pointing at a sale. And maybe you're right, Rory, about, especially it being a kids company, maybe Disney will see a cash cow and go, do you know what, we can capitalise. I mean, I still pay for the network. There are still, I think, 2 point something million people that do. But that's 2.4 or whatever the number is million people that I'm sure Disney are looking at, rubbing their hands together, going, well, we can get them too. Not family audience, the people that want to watch the classic stuff. Joe and Harry, what do you think about the sort of rumoured sale? Do you think it's going to happen? And as Rory has said, where do you think it will go?
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if a sale does go through, and like if Disney were to buy WWE, because as we've mentioned earlier, like WWE is like, from my point of view anyway, is their main target audience is kids and families. So it makes sense. It's fitting for Disney to buy WWE because of course Disney is also, their target audience is kids and families. So if you combine those two, like, it's just written in the stars. And you mentioned earlier, Carl, about WWE having like this record of profits, but that came to the expense of releasing and making these cuts to WWE superstars. I mean, I'm sorry, but you've got to view it from a different perspective here. Those cuts that Vince McMahon and the creative board and all his folks he's got working for him, when they made those cuts, they were being selfish because
Oh yeah, yeah.
there's more to a wrestler than just their personality on TV. Behind the scenes, yeah, that's their job. They've got to provide for their families. They've got to provide for themselves, and to be cut out of nowhere, that takes a massive toll on you. Like, wrestling is more than what people think it is. Yes, wrestling is a job. So just like with any job that you love, when that gets stripped from you, when that gets taken away from you, it takes a lot to come back from, and it takes a lot for you to, you know, process that. And it's not an easy process, just, you know, standing there and thinking, oh, I've lost my job now. What am I going to do tomorrow? But fortunately, in the professional wrestling world, there are other promotions out there that look at that release as an opportunity to maybe bring them on board to their show. Like, just one off the top of my head. Look at formerly known as Ruby Riot. She got released. AEW saw that, bring her in. Welcome Ruby Soho. You know, there is
Yeah.
like not all hope is lost, as they say. But come back to your question, yeah, the sale will not surprise me in the slightest. I think I'll call it now. I think Disney will,
Right.
like you said, they'll look at those network figures and they'll be like, yeah, here's a chance for us to just add more of potential of millions of dollars or billions of dollars to our
Yeah.
already network. You know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Just to sort of pick up on one of the points you said, Harry, was that I've watched so many of the, WCW was around at the time, ECW back in the day, WWE, New Japan. I have watched a lot of, much more so in the last couple of years, with people like Birdie and John. Love watching the G1 Classic, Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, in terms of grandiose, I mean, it rivals WrestleMania, and in fact, some years I would say probably beats it in terms of Wrestle Kingdom. It's absolutely phenomenal. The entrances are absolutely brilliant. I mean, one that comes to mind, Kenny Omega. His entrances at Wrestle Kingdom have always been spectacular. So there is, like you say, there's other places that people can go, and I think that's what. In fact, something that we spoke about at the very beginning of this was the wrestling fan, and the definition of that is there's so many people yelling at each other on the internet that are WWE or AEW fans, when there's loads of other ones. I mean, I bet some people listening now won't know that there's actually something in Mexico called AAA, which is actually pretty good. It's fun, it's colourful, it's bright, it's silly for the sake of being silly because it knows what category it fits in. And I think that's brilliant. Impact itself has very much decided, you know what, we're not going to even try and compete with the big boys. We know what we are, and we're going to do that well. What about yourself, Joe? Are you thinking Disney too, or?
For me, it's just whoever can get their hands on it. At the moment in time, I know a lot of people don't really want to see it, but it is a very, very large sinking ship at the moment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The whole reason, again, to touch on it again with the profits,
Yeah.
it's because they let so many people go, and the WWE for me at the moment feels very much like a dictatorship, which is why myself, my opinion, I tend to lean more to W, because they seem to treat their wrestlers as equals, and there's no this glass ceiling nonsense that I keep hearing about, and that basically that in WWE, Vince McMahon is, the be all and end all of a wrestler. If he can't find anything to do with you, you'll be fodder for the people he can see a future with. Now,
Yeah.
that's fine, apart from the fact that, well, who's going to want to be a wrestler and be told, I haven't got anything for you. You're just going to have to be needed to make everyone else look good. Not a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's. I mean, interesting to say. Yeah, glass ceiling, most definitely. I mean, I sometimes think of it, especially with how some people have been brought up from NXT to what they call the main roster of Raw and SmackDown.
Mm.
In fact, it's probably not even a glass ceiling, isn't it? It's probably you're walking into the woods, and you know that you are when you get called up. There's a lot of people. I mean, Balor was one of them who actually requested to go back, because absolutely, like you say, Joe, they're not being used correctly, and wrestlers know this, and I think a lot of them know this. I mean, Samoa Joe went back for a small thing, as from what I saw. I think that's the problem, isn't it? I think it's before, when people like Enzo and Cass got called up, you know, they were the greener pastures. You wanted to be on the Raw after SmackDown. You wanted to be the call up for that year. It very much quickly turned into, actually, no, I don't. I don't want to be called up because that's my character gone. That's my push gone. That's my run gone. As soon as that happens, because, like, you know, very much what you said. Once you get there, if they don't know, they don't do anything, and that hurts.
Yep.
That hurts the talent.
I,
Yeah.
I can name several stars that have all the potential in the world, but yet they're not doing anything with them. And honestly, as a person, as a wrestling fan, watching in on it, seeing what's happening, it just makes me upset because there's so much talent there,
Yeah.
and you know, it's the opinion of one person that's holding everything back, and that's what I don't like. I'd rather them to
I
just
agree.
go to greener pastures. Obviously, we know that the biggest competition. A lot of people
Yeah.
are now switching over, because they you know, from what I can tell, they respect their talent, and you know, they want them to do well. They want their characters to succeed, and that's why everyone's going over there. And I think that in, you know, retrospect, I think that AEW will outgrow WWE. I think in the next 10 years, and that's my prediction.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario that's going on at the moment because it's not quite the same as we've seen before. It's similar. You know, a lot of people left at the time WWF to go to the WCW. We saw a similar thing happen with TNA when it first started. I mean, when it was a squaring with yellow ropes in sort of year 2003, 2004, it was a kind of TNA was a "We Hate Vince McMahon" club. That's what it was to start with. But what's different, I think, about this one is there's always, you know, there is always that guy at the top. You know, Khan gets final say as Vince does. But I think, like you say, Joe, I think Khan, because he is a wrestling fan, I think he sees it from a completely different perspective to someone like Vince, who has been in the industry. You know, let's give him 50 odd years. He doesn't know. I don't think what a modern day wrestling fan is. I think Khan does because he is still one. That's what makes it different, I think.
Vince McMahon is very much a one-trick pony, in my opinion. He's very much it worked in the 90s, it will work now. But he has, in my personal opinion, he has absolutely no concept of what a wrestler is nowadays. I think it's just, you know, I mean, I look at people like Ricochet. I look at people like Ricochet, and I honestly,
Right.
he's one of the most amazing wrestlers in the world. And
Yes.
at the moment, he can't even win round one on the King of the Ring tournament.
I know.
I,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't know what he sees. He's tremendously talented. He had one run, I think maybe the first year he called up to the main roster. I think he was the US champion for a couple of months. But he's just completely dropped off. I can't even remember the last time I saw him on Raw. Like,
Well,
Agree. Yeah.
remembered
I suppose.
when he.
Oh, sorry, Rory. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, it's just when I was round Joe's house, Harry was round as well, and the one thing that really annoyed me is when he had a world title shot against Brock Lesnar for I think it was the WWE Championship, but the match ended so quick. All it was one F5, and that was it. I was expecting, had too much
Yeah,
expectation. I
that
thought it's going to
really
be
annoyed
Ricochet
me.
trying to flip around like Brock Lesnar's trying to get hold of him, and that was something I had in my mind. Think, oh, this could look really good, but then that's it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think Brock's. I mean, watching Brock's old stuff from when he debuted in 2002, I know he's got more talent than he's showing. And it's a shame. I think Brock is one where yes, let's give it to him. He is a money maker. But, like I say, I much would have much rather to see that. One of the phrases that works so well, I think, in the wrestling world is the thrill is in the chase. That can be for a title run, that can be for a match of trying to catch a faster guy, it can be in terms of a storyline. The thrill is always in the chase. And yeah, like you say, who wants to see, just a bunch of F5s and German suplexes? That's not a match, in my opinion.
I think just to touch on Brock Lesnar, that's one of the things about WWE that I do like about Brock Lesnar, because he's very much different to the rest of the mold. He goes in there and he's very, he's very much like a UFC fighter. He actually fights, and it takes a different perspective on it rather than just the standard wrestling match. So it's like he's different than the rest. And I will say something about Brock Lesnar. He did do one of my favourite matches. He did my favourite match of 2013, which was him versus CM Punk at SummerSlam 2013. Which is an absolute masterpiece. It is one, I will give Dory full credit for that, because that was one of the best matches I've ever seen. The storyline, everything. It even got to the Beated Beast. He could not be beaten. And CM Punk, who was visibly a lot smaller than Brock Lesnar, managed to get Brock Lesnar down around about half an hour. Brock Lesnar could not put him away, couldn't do a thing, battering the living hell out of CM Punk, who was a lot smaller than him, and a lot, and from Brock's words, a lot weaker. And he was in trouble. And if he hadn't used the chair, which is what CM Punk brought in, he probably wouldn't have won that match. And it was, it's perfect. It's a perfect match. I highly recommend anyone, if they haven't seen it, go and check that out. It is a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Brock's an interesting one, because having seen him before he moved to UFC, and then seeing him after, it's very, very different to what he was before. I know he had illness issues and stuff as well, and couldn't do a lot of things. So, dates. There's a lot of heat I think he does get for the amount of dates he does, but I think a lot of people don't realise that a lot of it is because Brock does like wrestling, but he got asked. It's not like he asked to come back. He was the one that was approached. But Brock, I think for me, is... I don't know, maybe because I saw the early stuff, I saw it very, very different when he came back. I mean, his return, when John Cena was standing in the ring, was definitely one of the things I was waiting for. I mean, I remember John and I were at a friend's flat, watching it on his iPad, waiting for that, because we wanted it. So it definitely does work, and I think, yeah, it's, like you say, Joe, it's a very good point to mention that he is different to a lot of other of the talent that are on the roster, which again does create variety. It's just a shame that it doesn't create enough for WWE to put itself out of this hole.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things for me was, I think it was like SummerSlam this year. They brought back Becky Lynch. They brought back Brock Lesnar to combat what AEW were doing, and I think that they did a debut before SummerSlam. So they brought back Lesnar, brought back Becky Lynch, and then to respond to that, AEW brought in Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's just
It's like two can play that game.
Exactly, two can play that. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things.
And yeah,
they definitely need to do more
fantastic
of.
moment to see that. It really was.
They definitely need to. I mean, being someone who watched the Monday Night Wars, I lived through it. Absolutely amazing. The competition between the two was definitely what pushed each company up and pushed them further, because they were competing with each other. I think that's something that is lacking in this one. I think Vince has lost the will to care. I think we kind of got that when he tried to start up the XFL again. We kind of realized that was the sign of him saying, "Yeah, I don't really care, guys. Like, I want to start this XFL again." It's competition. It's not. I think that's what people on the internet were expecting. They wanted another Monday Night War. It's never going to happen again. We are never going to see the likes of that ever again, I think. Because, which sort of brings us on to one of the points I did want to sort of ask you guys about was AEW has done a brilliant job of finally opening the forbidden door publicly. Now, it has been open before. We know that lots of people, Jericho was one of them, that used to sort of flip between Mexico, America, Japan, used to go all over the place, as did many. Flair went over, Brock's been over to Japan. Mysterio would go to Mexico at least once or twice a year. The door has always been open, but AEW has opened it publicly. They have finally told and let wrestling fans know that our guys can go wherever they like. We work with everybody. And I think that's brilliant. I mean, what's your three guys' opinion on the Forbidden Door being open publicly?
I just think it's a brilliant idea because I want to see stuff like that happen. I want to see something like maybe CM Punk versus Kazuchika Okada. I like to see quite a few other things. Like I've been wanting to see. That's one of the things I want to see, but I'm trying to remember the rest. What I was thinking. I'll let the other guys
I
say
think
their
it's
opinions.
I think it's great because when when a wrestler comes in and joins the AEW family, they know that they're not going to be tied down to one company the entire time that they're there. They have the opportunity to network with other shows, meet other wrestlers, have develop friendships with other wrestlers, and they can just expand their horizons with what they can do with their wrestling careers. And I think Tony Khan making this move is it's great to see as a wrestling fan. And if anywhere, this is going to continue to go up and up and up because all the wrestlers who are contracted to AEW know that, like I say, they're not tied down to anything. They can just, like you say, Carl, go off in different directions whenever they so please, and they can always come back to AEW. And I think it's great for every wrestler involved.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tremendous thing. It really is a tremendous thing. When you think about it's the possibilities, I think, that a lot of people are having at the moment. It's the matches that never should happen, but they are. I think of one now, straight off the top of my head, because it happened very, very recently. Minoru Suzuki came to AEW from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Had arguably one of my favourite matches I've ever seen against Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
Free on YouTube, and it was absolutely amazing. And I am waiting for the day that, Kenny Omega, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson are in the ring of an AEW, in the ring of AEW, and then suddenly Kota Ibushi
Oh yeah, yeah.
or Kazuchika Okada. The matches they will have are going to be ridiculous. The people are unaware of this. They don't know what's coming, and this is what Tony Khan's been saying all the time. He's been saying that in the future these plans are going to happen, and they are going to happen at the right time. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to see what he has in store because at the moment, ever since especially this year 2021, AEW has given me some some of the best wrestling moments I've ever seen. The cage match from All Out, the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. Good God Almighty! Wow! It is incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
I think it's something that has actually, I mean, talking of it, what it is, a figurative door, is I think it's done a similar thing for the wrestling fans as well. Like, I think a lot of people that did sort of switch maybe from the WWE to AEW, they have not known what New Japan is. They don't know that AAA exists. They don't know that Lucha Underground's a thing. It's opened all these possibilities for, I think, fans as well. Like I said, I've watched New Japan for a long, long time. But I think some of the fans that have moved over, I think will love that kind of stuff. I mean, the Bullet Club has been a legendary stable for a long, long time, as is Chaos, and all the other ones that are in New Japan. Some of the greatest matches I ever saw came from New Japan as a promotion. And I think it's, again, like you guys say, it's a brilliant move in the fact that it opens the door for the wrestlers, but it also opens the door for fans. They are being shown things they've never seen before, because of them opening it for the wrestlers. And I think that's going to be it's a great time to be a wrestling fan at the moment.
Absolutely.
Well, we've hit the hour mark, fellas. So, what is there anything you guys want to sign off with? Is there any kind of thing of what we've spoken about that you might want to put a final point on, or?
I'd say just for everyone who watches wrestling, um, you know, just enjoy it.
Mm.
Enjoy it for what it is. Enjoy whatever you want to watch, and just never stop dreaming.
Mhm.
That's what I'd say to everyone. Never stop, because so many people will always try and get you down and say you can't do something. You can't do this. You can't do that. Just ignore them. You want to be a professional wrestler, then you be a professional wrestler. You work your socks off, and you get everything done, and you get there. Yeah, that's what I'd say to them. Don't never give up on your dreams. Just go for it.
Cool.
I like to sign off by saying, just adding on to what Joe said there, is with this whole war against which brand of wrestling, say which company is better, WWE or AEW, like, at the end of the day, you're a professional wrestling fan, so you tune in to which show you would like to tune in. I don't want this debate or like this, keyboard warrior war going on Twitter, arguing about why you liking that brand over the other brand is wrong, or you should watch this company over this company because it's better for ABC. It doesn't matter. You have the freedom as a professional wrestling fan to tune in to your preferred company that you would like to watch and support, because at the end of the day, regardless of what the company is, they both offer the same thing. That's sports, entertainment, and professional wrestling. It doesn't matter. They both provide you with the same thing. And yes, sure, people have their preferences, but let people just crack on and watch what they would like to watch. This should be fun. Professional wrestling is fun. And if you take that fun away from professional wrestling, or like I say, from us as professional wrestling fans, you're doing no one no favours at all. And if anything, you're going to cause unnecessary arguments, unnecessary, beef or, grievances with people. Just stop it. And
Yeah.
adding on to what Joe said, regardless of what your dream is, whether it's to be a professional wrestler in the near future or to be a filmmaker like myself or a streamer on Twitch, whatever your ambitions are, whatever your goals are in life, remember why you started. And when the days get tough, always remember why you started and keep thriving for more. And don't let any outsiders' opinions affect you and your path, your journey towards achieving your dream. And always make sure that you have a close group of friends around you who want to see you succeed and who want to help you along this journey. Because without the support of others, I know they say you've got to fight for your own at times, which is true, but the support from others can really go a long way. And finally, like what CM Punk said on just last week's episode of AEW, I think it was Dynamite, he said this on, if you're in a place where you need help, get it. Call somebody, text somebody, seek help and advice, because it really is the most courageous thing that you can do. And never, ever feel ashamed to reach out when you need it, when you are in your darkest hour of the day.
Absolutely.
So, Ralph, I say my bit.
Yeah, go for it, Rory.
One thing I want to point out is if you're someone that likes to watch wrestling on television, like WWE, AEW, New Japan, World of Sport Wrestling, and obviously the list goes on. But I would say you got to at least try and watch an independent show. Like even go and watch your local support, like independent show, like your local independent show, because there's some up and coming wrestlers on there. You never know who you could see. You might see some former WWE stars on there, like when me and Harry saw David Finlay at the Beck Theatre in London, and I remember seeing someone can't remember his name, but I remember he used to team up with Pac on NXT that we saw at Vortex Wrestling. Really bad. Can't remember his name really well. I do apologise, but you never know you never know these wrestlers can become big stars in other promotions. And like one minute you see them on TV saying, "Hey, I just saw that guy live."
Mm.
You know, it's like that with quite a few people, like even working in EWA, like all those wrestlers. I never knew there were some wrestlers that used to wrestle in EWA, like Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. But it was really awesome to commentate on some of the guys' matches, like Eddie Dennis, like who's now in NXT UK, and Gable Kidd, like who is now in New Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
literally,
absolutely. It's you never know. I mean, a conversation me and the guys were having about what was AWA All or Nothing in 2019. Um, you never think. I mean, 14 years EWA will be coming up to in January 2022. If you'd have told me 14 years ago that in 2019 I was going to have a scheduling problem with the WWE, I wouldn't have believed you. And exactly what happened. We had a scheduling problem with the WWE. And Mike Hicksham, bless him, stepped in for Eddie, who had to be in Florida. So yeah, very much to what you were saying, Rory. You never know who you're going to see or who you're going to work with and rub shoulders with. The brotherhood backstage you get with people, like, it's. I didn't think that I'd be casually chatting to Simon Miller, on a Wednesday afternoon, sometimes, or a Thursday morning, or sometimes on a Sunday evening. You don't think you're going to be casually chatting to someone like him, who is such a nice guy. I've got to say as well. Absolute legend. So nice, so kind, so humble, and that is again part of the world. I think people embrace it, and like you guys said, Harry and Joe, to surmise to the listeners, stop fighting on the internet. Just enjoy it. Stop fighting on the internet.
Yeah.
It's
And
there to be
always go
enjoyed.
for your dream as well. Always go
Yeah.
for your dream.
Yeah.
It's something there to be enjoyed. It's the reason why we start, like you said, Harry. I started EWA to give something to the town, obviously personal reasons as well. But
Yeah.
we are supposed to give 2 hours of happiness to a crowd that has come to see you. 3 hours if you're Raw, of course. But it's supposed to be there to be entertainment, and that's what it's there for. Like, let's just embrace that. Like with so many of the live shows I've been to, you know, you talk to randomers you don't know in the middle of London because you are wrestling fans, and you've got that camaraderie between the two of you. That's what it's supposed to be. Not, like you say, keyboard warriors yelling at each other on the internet. But anyway, thank you very much, guys. Maiden voyage of the Captain's Cabin. It's been great speaking to you guys. We should definitely do another one. When we've
Absolutely.
got time. We'll see how it goes. We'll see who listens to it. A bunch of wrestling fans rambling with each other.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes, my
thanks for
pleasure.
having me as well.
Yes, well, enjoy your evenings, guys. I will sign off from it now. But thanks very much again.
Thank you, mate.
Thank
See you
you.
later, fellas.